Hello everyone, welcome to Ekascloud. In this video, we are going to learn about identity and access management services provided by Azure. Okay, this is the most important service of Azure service that provided by Azure because management of other identities is one of the most critical topics when it comes to Azure. So whether you are trying to be a developer, architect or administrator, you should at least understand the basics of this access management and identity services. Okay, so in what are the services comes under this identity and access management in Azure is identity describe identity authentications and authorizations. So we are going to discuss about all these three things in this video, and what are the what are the services that in Azure falls under this category. Identity and access management service is Azure Active Directory and multi-factor authentication, that is MFA. Okay, now let us understand what is mean by identity and authentication and authorization. Okay, so let's move to the topic. Identity. So first, identity in general means a fact of being something or someone, some fact of being something or someone. So for example, our user accounts are considered identity for us. So if we want to log into Azure portal, we use our own identities, and we typically identify ourselves using username and passwords. Yes, right? But identity can also mean an application or server which will identify itself with a secret key or certificate that we saw in the previous lectures. Okay, so in this process of verification of that identity is called authentication. So if user connects to your server, presented himself with the username, for instance Tom. Okay, let us have a scenario. For instance, Tom authentication server will require Tom to present some sort of authentication factor like a password. So only then Tom's session will be established and the identity will be verified. Okay, so whenever we logged into Azure portal, we needed to present our own credentials, that is username and password. So this is the process of authentication. Okay, but once the identity is verified, there is another process called authorization. Okay, so when, for instance, Tom will try to access one of our services from his account. His account will be needed to be validated whether this account was granted access by the resource owner. In this case, services by its own, or they can contact an external authorization server whether Tom has been granted access to this specific service. So this process of ensuring that only authenticated identities get access to the resource for which they have been granted access to by the resource owner is called authorization. So hope you understood what is meant by authorization and authentication and identity. So identity is the username or password which we get, and authentication is the validation or verification, and authorization is the granted access. So we see that in every aspect of the management for Azure platform, if you go to Azure resource group, that means we already have the access to view that resource group. If we try to create or delete resource group or any service within that resource group, that means we have been granted access to do so. So this process of checking that granted permission is called authorization. So these are the things about okay. Finally we are going to see what is meant by access management. So the process of controlling, verifying, tracking and managing access to authorized users and applications is called access